Alright guys, and so the last thing we need to do here is we need to simplify the negative 4 over 2, which would equal negative 2 square root 2. Alright, next one guys, there's a few ways to do this. You can either start by distributing these, or you can simplify each of them and then distribute. I personally think it'd be quicker and more efficient to distribute both of these in here. This would give me the square root of 64 plus the square root of 20. Then all we're going to do is solve both of these. So the square root of 64 is just 8. And now we're going to break down square root of 20, which is 4 and 5, and then 2 and 2. So I'd pull out a 2 to have 2 square root 5 plus 8. Remember, we can only add and subtract when they have the same square root. These obviously do not, so this would be my final solution. Alright, so next on this one, same idea. I'm going to distribute this radical 3 into both of these. And remember, anytime I'm multiplying two radicals that are exactly the same, it's just going to equal that number. So radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, and radical 9 is just 3. So we took care of this part. Now we're going to do the plus square root of 15. I got 15 by doing 3 times 5, which is 15. So then I'm going to multiply these two to get 12 plus radical 15. Radical 15 breaks down to 5 and 3. There are no pairs, so 12 plus radical 15 is my final answer. Alright, just a few more. Now on this one, remember how we cannot have an irrational number in the denominator? So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 6. So the bottom, we've seen that part before. This would be 2 times square root of 6 times the square root of 6 is just 6. And now on the numerator, I'm going to have to distribute that 6 to the 9 and to the 3. So I'm going to have the square root of 18, where I got from radical 3 times radical 6, minus 9 radical 6. Alright, so now let's go and simplify this. Square root of 18 breaks down to 9 and 2, and then 3 and 3. So that gives me 3 square root 2 minus 9 square root 6. 6 only breaks down to 2 and 3, so there's no pairs, all over 6. Now, really important, guys, when there's a subtraction or addition sign, you want to look at the coefficients, all my whole numbers, and you want to see, are they all divisible by the same number? Meaning, can I reduce all of those numbers by the same number? And in this instance, we can. That number is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. Therefore, I would have a final answer of square root 2 minus 3 square root 6 all over 2. Must be simplified. Alright, now on this one, we're going to go ahead and start by, I have this negative number, and I'm going to distribute it to each thing on the inside. So I'm going to have 5 plus 2 square root 12 minus 3 minus square root of 48. Now I'm going to look at my whole numbers. I have 5 minus 3. 5 minus 3 is 2, so we took care of those numbers. And then I'm going to have plus 2 square root 12 minus the square root of 48. Now what we're going to do is break these down. Square root of 12 breaks down to 4 and 3, and this breaks down to 2 and 2. So I'm going to pull out a 2. So this would give me 2 plus 2 times the 2 I pulled out is 4 square root 3 minus, now when I look at 48, the two numbers that multiply to 48, we can do like 24 and 2, 12 and 2, 6 and 2, 2 and 3. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I bring out 2 2's with the leftover 3. And then radical 2 times 2 is 4, radical 3. So I'm going to move this down just a tad so we can continue to simplify it. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I have 4 square root 3 minus 4 square root 3. Picture this being 4x minus 4x. If I have 4x minus 4x, they just all cancel to get 0. So these essentially cancel, and I'm left with just 2. Alright, so now let's go ahead and look at this one. I'm going to start by distributing this square root of 8 to both terms. This will give me 5 square root 8 minus square root of 80. Let's see, this breaks down to 2 times 2 times 2. I have a group of 2's that can come out. So 2 times 5 is 10 with the leftover square root 2 minus 80 breaks down to, let's just do 10 and 8. This is 2 and 5. And then this is 2 times 2 times 2. I have one pair of 2's and a second pair of 2's. This would be minus 4 square root 5. Last step, I double check if they have the same square roots. They do not, so then this would be my final answer. Alright, last one. I have 3 over 100 minus the square root of 75. This would look like the square root of 3 all over the square root of 100 minus the square root of 75. This would break down to the square root of 3 all over 10 minus, and then 75 is 25 and 3. If I took the square root of both of those, that would give me 5 square root 3. Now, since they have the same base, remember, radical 3 over 10 is the same as 1/10 times the square root of 3. So they have the same square root. So what we're going to do is we need a common denominator. So what I'm going to do is multiply the numerator and the denominator by 10 here. So over here, I would still have the square root. It's 1 square root of 3 all over 10 minus 50 square root of 3 over 10. Then when I subtract these, 1 minus 50 is negative 49. The square root of 3 just stays there. We don't add or subtract those. And then this is all over 10. Alright guys, hopefully this lesson was helpful. If you have any questions, please ask your neighbor. I will be back on Monday. Please get started on whatever the board says. I think it's either homework or a review sheet. So yeah, enjoy your guys' weekend.